So can a narcissist change? And can your relationship be saved if you're dating or married to one? And the answer to both is yes. But it all hinges on one vital element. A narcissist will never change if they don't actually see a problem with the way things are, right? In order for change to ever take place, they have to first actually admit that something isn't working, whether that's in their behavior towards you or their relationship as a whole. And even if they admitted all that, even if they apologized for it, you know as well as I do, that has nothing to do with whether or not they'll actually follow through, right? Not only does change have to be their idea, because we don't want someone else changing for us, that change never lasts. It has to come from inside of them. But even if they really did want to change, it will still never happen if they refuse to actually put in the time and effort and actually do the work. Intentions mean nothing. We all had intentions to work out or get healthy or eat right on January 1st, right? How many people wanted that? Millions. How many people are actually seeing results this far into the year? Only the people who consistently put in the work. So can a narcissist change? Absolutely. Anyone can change. The question is, are they willing to put in the work of self-reflection and humility and admitting that they don't know everything and learning how to repair conflict and heal the damage that they've caused from invalidation or gaslighting or lying or selfishness? Because one of the most destructive traits of a narcissist is the inability to take any accountability, right? They are always the victim. Why? Because their ego can't handle the shame of admitting that they are capable of making a mistake or doing something wrong. So they stay in this vicious cycle where the only people that are getting hurt is you. The reason narcissistic relationships are so toxic and damaging is because self-centeredness and pride are incompatible with closeness and connection. You cannot have intimacy or mutual respect or emotional safety with someone who thinks that they are superior to you or special or entitled or tries to dominate, manipulate, or control you. You will never feel safe with someone who purposefully violates your boundaries or lies or invalidates or dismisses your feelings. You will never feel connected to someone who refuses to accept constructive feedback without punishing you for it. That's not a partnership. And if someone isn't willing to change in those areas, the relationship will eventually end. Not due to a lack of love. People love each other every day. Relationships require so much more than love. They require mutual respect and consideration and affection and gentleness and the ability to empathize. They require both people to actually care how the other person feels valued and prioritized and then actually do those things intentionally out of love. The narcissist so often has no intentions on doing any of that, which means all of their relationships will fail. Their relationships with their children, their friendships, their intimate partners, their work relationships, it's all going to fail because they refuse to see that the way they're showing up is destructive and corrosive to love. So can a narcissist change? Sure, but only if they admit there's a problem that needs changing. And far too often, the narcissist only sees one problem in this relationship, and that's you. They blame you for their insecurity. They blame you as the reason you're unhappy. They even blame you for why they mistreat you. So then how does a narcissist change? It happens when they finally see that there are negative consequences to their behavior and they're actually willing to get help. In the end, that's kind of how we all change, right? We stay stuck in our own patterns and behaviors until we realize, or someone shows us, that it's actually negatively affecting us. And today I want to challenge you. While the narcissist absolutely needs to change, what areas do you need to change? Because if I'm honest, it breaks my heart that you're being mistreated and disrespected and potentially abused. It breaks my heart that you've forgotten that you deserve so much more than the bare minimum. So here comes the hard part. When it comes to dating or being married to a narcissist, the only way to save that relationship is by showing them that you're actually willing to walk away. No, Jimmy, you must not have heard me. I said I wanted to save my relationship, not lose it. I know. And the only way to save it is by being willing to walk away from toxic or unsafe ones. Because that's the problem with so many narcissistic relationships. We can be stuck in a trauma bond and we don't even realize it. We've convinced ourselves that we need to fix them or heal them with our love. We've convinced ourselves that subconsciously we just need to figure out a way not to trigger them, right? Some of you have been conditioned your whole life that you need to earn love and that you don't deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. And that's wrong. You are valuable. You are worthy of being considered and prioritized. You deserve the same compassion and warmth and love that you so freely give to others. And if speaking up vulnerably about your feelings or needs or hurts only results in more pain from your partner, then this isn't a safe relationship and you need to get help. Sure, we can say that we were love bombed in the beginning and they tricked us, right? And now they're neglecting or manipulating or gaslighting or invalidating us and we feel stuck, right? We feel committed. I mean, let's be honest, we feel bonded to them. And we're just hoping that things will go back to the good days, right? And I hate to break it to you, but the good days are over. For some of you, they never existed because you were being manipulated the whole time. For others of you, your partner wasn't faking it. I mean, you really did fall in love together and you had those great times, but that's not who they truly were. And all their destructive personality traits are finally showing. And the good days don't matter. However we got here, this is our new reality. The best thing that you can do is realize I can't control them into connection. I can't boundary them into loving me. No one is coming to save me. I need to save me. And admit to yourself first, this relationship isn't working for me. I'm not perfect, but I know I don't deserve to be neglected, unappreciated, or called names. So tell yourself, I'm willing to do the work. But if they aren't, if they refuse to even listen to my hurt, if they refuse to admit there's a problem, or if it's unsafe at all, then I have to leave. And that's very hard and very tragic, but let's just be honest. What's the alternative? I mean, really, what's the other option? Staying in an unfulfilling, potentially unsafe relationship where someone dismisses and neglects you, where someone devalues you and tells you that you're not worthy to be prioritized? That's not an alternative. When we start to feel like we can't leave an unsafe situation because we can't be okay without them, that's codependency, and that's a trauma bond. The truth is, if they're not willing to do the work, you can either leave now and start on your healing journey, and yes, that's going to be hard, or you will leave eventually, once the situation becomes so toxic that you don't even recognize yourself anymore. Relationships are a really big deal. They affect everything about us. The Gottmans did a study once and could predict how sick you would become over the next few years based on how your partner spoke to you. People who were belittled and demeaned and had partners who consistently spoke to them with contempt were developing immune system issues and getting significantly sicker than the people in healthier relationships. Why? Because our relationships affect everything. Our health, our happiness, our depression, our anxiety, our joy. They impact it all. I'm not saying that we should put all of our power in someone else's hands, but let's not be ignorant enough to say that how someone treats us doesn't massively affect us, because it does. So, how do you save your relationship with someone who you view as narcissistic? Well, if it's safe, because everything hinges on safety. If you're not safe, you shouldn't even be speaking to this person. You should be getting out and getting safe. But if it's safe, you need to come to a place where you can calmly express to this person. Calmly and assertively is the key here, because they're used to you being either emotionally volatile or giving them the silent treatment. But if you think for just a second, when you do one of those two things, they still get the message that they're important to you because you're acting out, right? You're expressing yourself in a big way. And to them, whether they're manipulating you or not, they can still see that you care about them by those actions. Some people, that will actually discourage them from changing at all, because most people only change when they have to. So we're going to do the opposite, not to manipulate them, but just because this is effective communication. You need to get to the place where you're truly ready to leave if nothing changes, and then calmly and assertively look them in the eyes and say, I can no longer stay in this relationship if things don't change. You're not making ultimatums. You're not calling them names. You're calmly stating a fact. I can no longer be in this relationship unless we move towards healthy, safe, and connected. And you can say this in a kind and respectful way. You can say, hey, in the past, we've both gotten into these fights where we've called each other names or neglected each other or gotten defensive or been critical and not listened to each other. I'm not going to do that anymore because you deserve respect and love, just like I do. Remind them, I'm willing to take accountability for my stuff. But I need us to come together as a team and learn how we can both feel fulfilled in this relationship, because I care about you and I know you care about me. But if we can't figure out how to make this a safe and honest relationship, then I think it would be better if you found someone that you're more compatible with. And remember, we're not saying this to be manipulative. At this point, we have mourned the death of this relationship and we are ready to either A, move on, or B, start a brand new relationship. We can be sad, we can be anxious about the future, but at this point, we are ready to say goodbye and move on despite how hard that is. That's the beginning of healing. We are finally setting boundaries and having a standard for how we know we deserve to be treated, because no one deserves to be belittled or demeaned or abused in any way, right? No one deserves to be neglected or dismissed. Your perspective is just as important as theirs is, and your value is exactly the same as well. If they can't treat you with mutual respect, if they don't believe that you deserve to be considered, then that's their choice, but they need to learn choices have consequences. Now, they could respond to this a number of different ways, But a lot of people who would have been defensive and taken everything as an attack in the past, a lot of people who would have shut down or stonewalled you in the past, will suddenly open up and be willing to have these conversations once they know you're actually willing to walk. Now, is that fair? No. Is that immature of them? Do you deserve better than that? 100% yes. But you showing them you're assertively setting a standard for this relationship, you showing them that you understand your value, you setting boundaries around toxic and destructive behaviors on both sides, and you being willing to walk away if they have no interest in honoring those, that can be a healthy catalyst that inspires positive long-term change. Am I saying that you should give the narcissist a second chance? No, not at all. That's your decision. All I'm saying is that whether this relationship survives or not is kind of irrelevant. The key takeaway is that you have made a decision to move towards a healthier place with or without them. Now, if they move in your direction, if they respond positively to this, and for the first time in months or years you have one of those conversations where you're actually able to be honest with each other and you both cry and have this beautiful moment and it gives you a glimmer of hope, right? I want you to do a couple things. First, I want you to see a counselor by yourself at first. I want you to start reading some good books together. Anything by John and Julie Gottman, anything by Esther Perel or Sue Johnson. I just read a great book by Julie Manano called Secure Love. Grab any of those and read them together. Now, some people are going to say, oh, the narcissist is just going to use that information against you. We have to stop thinking like that and putting power back in their court, because when we are learning about what invalidation sounds like, when we're learning about what mutual respect sounds like, they can say whatever they want, but now you're listening for what the demeaning comments sound like. You're listening for what gaslighting sounds like. And as long as it's safe, you're calling it out and you're no longer tolerating it. That's why it's so important that we understand our value and we're not putting ourselves in situations where we are submissive to a dominant partner. Because there's no room for dominance in a healthy relationship. The goal is for both of you to develop a new blueprint for how we want this relationship to go. Yes, people make mistakes, and we're not talking about expecting perfection here. However, it is imperative that you both decide together, you both come to an agreement that we're going to get rid of toxic and destructive behaviors. That means no more yelling, or name-calling, or pride, or self-centeredness, or criticism, or shutting down, or silent treatments, or defensiveness. All that stuff. We're going to slowly remove it all from our relationship. Is that hard? Absolutely. And even harder, we're not just going to remove the bad. We're going to interject good into our relationship. We're going to start having mandatory check-ins every week where we talk about what we're getting right and what we need to work on. We're going to have intentional talks every single night where we learn about each other again. We validate each other's feelings. We learn how this person feels loved and prioritized. And we make a plan to do those things and speak to each other with respect and kindness from now on. This is the new bare minimum. If your partner has no interest in doing these things, then you will not feel close or connected or safe with this person. You can choose to stay in that relationship or not, but I know the equation for closeness and negligence and complacency aren't on the list. And in addition to all of that, there's one more vital thing that I need you to do. I need you to stop thinking of them as a narcissist. I mean, let's just be honest. Do we really think that's going to help anything? Do we really think that's going to lead to them self-reflecting or changing? I think we label people because we're in deep pain. You've been hurt badly in this relationship. You've been dismissed and neglected, ignored, invalidated, lied to, loved, bummed, manipulated, potentially even emotionally or physically abused. And our brains have to make sense of that in some way. Tragically, sometimes we make sense of someone else's toxic and destructive behaviors by blaming ourselves. We grew up with parents who consistently made us feel like we needed to work to be loved and that we didn't deserve for someone to prioritize us. We grew up thinking that we didn't have inherent value or worth. And while that's completely wrong, and you do, sometimes we don't feel like we do we? And when someone treats us bad, we think, I must have done something to trigger them, right? We think, I can fix this situation by working on me. When in reality, you don't ever cause anyone to mistreat you, nor do you have any control over anyone else's behaviors. But the other way we make sense of our pain is not by looking inward, but completely outward. It's all on them. They are a narcissist. That feels better to say, doesn't it? Let's just be honest, it's easier to think of them as the sole problem. And I'm not saying they aren't the sole problem. I'm certainly not saying your pain isn't real. It is. I've felt some of that. I know how terrible these types of relationships can feel. All I'm saying is that we have to be careful, because when we label someone, sometimes we use that as an excuse to take the focus off of what we need to do differently. What boundaries do I need to set? What areas of this relationship do I have control over? it puts us in a victim mindset where they hold all of the power. And you know what? The truth is, they do hold a lot of power in this relationship. I already mentioned above how our partner absolutely contributes to whether we feel valued and safe and loved. But connection and closeness require two people putting in the work, right? You won't trust someone who you don't feel like cares about your pain. And you won't feel safe or connected to someone who doesn't care about kindness or respect or consideration. Instead of labeling someone, let's just ask ourselves, do I feel prioritized in this relationship consistently? Do I feel safe? Do I feel like they care about my needs, wants, and desires? Do I feel valued and appreciated and loved? Or do I feel neglected, invalidated, dismissed, or ignored? Because I don't really care if they meet all criteria for a narcissist or not. This relationship is doomed if your partner refuses to be a safe place where you can be vulnerable about how you feel. Healing comes when we not only look for ways they need to change, which I'm sure are a lot, but also what do we need to change? Now, I'm not saying this ever means that you deserve to be mistreated or abused, or you should have gotten out sooner, you should have known better. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying it takes a lot of maturity to admit I need to change the way I silence myself and rarely advocate for my needs because I'm scared. I need to change how I tolerate someone speaking to me or treating me consistently. I gave them way too many chances and they apologized and never changed. And I didn't leave. I need to change my mindset about myself because the truth is I'm certainly not perfect, but I know I deserve to be treated as valuable. I'm worthy of kindness and respect and consideration. And for a long time, because of my past, I didn't believe that about myself, and I'm healing, and I need to change that. It takes maturity to be assertive about our needs again and ask, what conflict dynamics are we stuck in? And am I willing to take accountability for my role and heal and get healthy and work towards showing up in a more respectful and vulnerable way? And are they willing to do those as well? The truth is a relationship can be saved, even with someone who has narcissistic traits, but only if you're both on a path towards maturity and emotional safety and learning how to repair conflicts and prioritize each other again. A true narcissist will have no interest in any of that. But there are people who are self-centered and arrogant and prideful and shut down and avoid conflict and closeness, and you might have narcissistic traits, but you know that there is good in you and you want to experience love with another person. You just don't know how. And you can find healing too. If you're watching this, and you're not using it to manipulate your partner later, you're not a narcissist. You're just protecting yourself out of fear. Now, make no mistake, protection can still really hurt other people and isolate and sabotage you from ever experiencing connection with someone ever again on an intimate level. But healing and change are possible. You just have to want it more than you want to avoid it. It's scary, but you can learn why you're terrified of intimacy. It's because you didn't have any healthy role models growing up, did you? You were conditioned to learn that being vulnerable or needing someone else for closeness or security only resulted in more pain. Of course it makes sense why you default to self-centeredness. It makes sense why you leave before they can hurt you. It makes sense why you don't trust love, because you're protecting yourself. And healing is possible. You just have to be willing to put in the work to explore that pain, understand it, validate it, admit that you deserved things as a child and you didn't receive them, like connection and unconditional love and safety. And it takes admitting that the way you're showing up in relationships right now isn't working and daring to try something new. I have faith in you, and I hope you do as well. Thank you so much for listening. Can't wait to see you in the next one.